I've just come back from the best part of a week spent travelling around northern Wales and Snowdonia. And to be honest, what a time I've had and what a country it is. Spectacular landscapes of rivers, mountains, and forests, beautiful architecture, friendly people who were incredibly welcoming. What was very noticeable, there was no indication of the woke infection. Now, Northern Wales is very patriotic and proud. Most people there spoke Welsh. We saw groups of people, even groups of school children, all speaking in the native language. All the road signs and the restaurant menus, etc., were all in Welsh as well as in English. Pretty much every flag we saw flying from the institutions and buildings, apart from maybe one or two and some Ukrainian flags, was the Welsh national flag. That is in stark contrast to England, where the national and county flags are being replaced by various versions of gender and pride flags, even on our most important buildings and institutions. We went to Carnarvon Castle and the brilliant military museum there. I was utterly astonished when again there was no sign of wokeness, something almost unthinkable now in any English museum. It was the Royal Welsh Fusiliers Museum and one of the best I've ever been to. My partner, who's not normally massive on history and military history, spent the best part of 2 hours intently reading everything in the museum. She even had us looking through the hundreds of medals on display, trying to find particular ones and looking into what each medal meant and what it was awarded for and to who. Everything was informative, fascinating, but it never glorified war and it never gave a moral lecture on it. It simply presented the facts of history without feeling ashamed of it. Now, some may say, well, it's okay for the Welsh to feel proud of their history because, unlike England, theirs is not one of colonisation, plundering, racism, murder, and oppression, all things used to describe English history and used as justification why the English people should feel ashamed of their history and culture and ultimately reject it. But you'd be wrong. The Royal Welsh Fusiliers fought the Ashanti and the Boers. They engaged in colonial battles in Africa as part of the British Army. Yet the historians behind this museum didn't feel the need to lecture us about morals from a time no one today has a right to lecture on. Now, my partner again did make a profound point when she said, "This place makes me sad." She was saying history seems so much about war and death. And granted, it was a military museum, but the sheer level of history in there was staggering. And no doubt the history compiled within the museum was only a fraction of the history of the regiment. But what became very clear was most of it was white people killing and fighting other white people. The vast majority of conflicts this regiment saw involved fighting against other Europeans, white people. And as time passed, these people invented ever more murderously effective weaponry, which more often than not was used again to kill other white people. Now, this doesn't diminish the horrors of colonialism in no way. It's just the truth as I see it. And let's face facts, whether it's Europeans, Asians, Africans, much of human history is one of colonization, war, fighting, and death. And we just have to look to any other animal: wolves, bears, hyenas, chimpanzees. They all have a history of fighting, killing, territorial disputes, and battles. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, it's the same for humans. Now, the Northern Welsh appeared to be very friendly, as I said, and I certainly didn't see any examples of outright racism or xenophobia. Quite the opposite. And we did go as a multiracial group, and many of the tourists and visitors were of different ethnicities and nationalities. Now, we English should look to Northern Wales, and take note, that is what a proper country looks like. And it's time we realised we can be proud and passionate about our history and culture. And it sure as hell doesn't mean we are racist or xenophobic. And it sure as hell doesn't mean that we can acknowledge the bad parts of history. Now, there will always be those who wish to revel in anti-Britishness and self-loathing, and they are free to do so. But we can't let them dictate the narrative of the country and bring us all down with them. You must first learn to love yourself before anyone else can love you. If you do not respect yourself, how can you expect anybody else to respect you? The Welsh certainly love and respect themselves, and as a consequence, I saw with my own eyes the visitors and tourists also fall in love with their culture and country too.